I was staring at his jawline when my world crumbled. The new guy, Damien, leaned over me in that booth like he owned me, his cologne thick, intoxicating. Just a week ago, I was lying in Ethan's arms, safe, warm, boring. But now? I was chasing adrenaline, and I thought Damien was the fire I needed. That night, Damien slid his hand under the table, grazing my thigh as he whispered about getting a hotel. My heart pounded, from guilt, from lust, from knowing I'd already burned the bridge behind me. Ethan had cried when I left. Not yelled. Not begged. Just looked at me like he saw right through the shallow, selfish girl I was becoming. "If you think he's better, go," he'd said. I had. And now, sitting across from Damien with my lipstick smudged and my conscience screaming, I noticed something I hadn't before. His smile wasn't kind. It was cruel. Calculated. He liked the power, not me. But by the time I realized it, I was already too deep. And Ethan? He'd moved on. At least, that's what I thought, until I saw him 2 weeks later, with her. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're alone, because this is going to hurt. I still remember the way Ethan looked at me that night, like I'd pulled the floor out from under him and he was trying not to fall. His hands were in his hoodie pockets, shaking slightly, but he wouldn't pull them out. Like he needed to hold himself together, piece by piece. We were standing in the parking lot behind our apartment building, under that one flickering street lamp that always made things feel cinematic. I was wearing the dress Damien said made me look dangerous. I thought that was a compliment. Ethan's voice was low, almost a whisper, when he said, "So, this is it?" I nodded. I couldn't even meet his eyes. I need something different. I don't want to settle. I hate myself for saying that. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Settle? He echoed, blinking fast. So I was a placeholder? A stepping stone? I didn't answer. Because deep down, I didn't know. Ethan had been everything. Kind. Patient. Attentive. The type of guy who remembered my favorite bakery, who never forgot to check if I'd eaten, who held me when I had panic attacks even if we were fighting. But lately, he felt predictable. And somewhere between scrolling Instagram and watching rom-coms that glorified passion over peace, I convinced myself that predictability meant something was missing. I met Damien at a mutual friend's party. Tall, smirky, the type of guy who knew he was hot and didn't care if you knew it too. When he looked at me, I felt wanted in a way I hadn't felt with Ethan lately. It was dangerous attention, the kind that made you feel alive and sick at the same time. He messaged me the next day. "Just had fun last night," winky face, but it was enough to send my heart racing. For the next week, I spiraled. Flirted. Lied. Told Ethan I was working late when I was out having drinks with Damien. The guilt was there, gnawing at the corners, but I kept pushing it away. I told myself I was young. That I deserved to explore. That Ethan would be fine, he always was. Until he wasn't. The night I broke things off, Ethan didn't fight. He just asked me one question. Is he worth it? I opened my mouth, but the truth stuck to my throat. So I just said, I don't know. But I need to find out. He didn't even cry in front of me. Just nodded slowly and turned back to our building. I stood there like an idiot, holding my phone and trying not to throw up. Damien had texted me an hour earlier, "You coming tonight or what?" And like a fool, I replied, "Be there soon." I went to his place that night. It wasn't romantic or special. It was cold, dim, impersonal. He didn't ask how I felt. Didn't care what I'd done to be there. Just pulled me into his room like I was some trophy he'd won. I told myself this was what freedom felt like. That Ethan would understand eventually. That we were both better off. But even in Damien's arms, I felt hollow. I stared at the ceiling after he fell asleep, wondering if Ethan was still awake. If he was hurting. I told myself he'd be fine. That he'd thank me later. I didn't know I'd left him shattered. The following week, I kept pretending. Posting selfies. Laughing with Damien's friends. Acting like I'd won something. But Ethan's absence clung to me like smoke. Everywhere I went reminded me of him. That Thai place on 4th where he used to feed me pad cew with chopsticks. The bookstore where he surprised me with poetry books just because. The coffee shop where we spent rainy Sundays sharing earbuds and playlists. Damien never did those things. He didn't even notice when I stopped ordering dessert, or when I faked a smile through dinner. He'd say things like, "You look hotter when you're quiet." And I'd laugh, like that was normal. Like I hadn't just downgraded from being loved to being used. A week later, I saw Ethan. And I wasn't ready for it. I was walking out of the grocery store with Damien when I spotted him across the parking lot. He was with a girl. Brunette. Cute. Laughing at something he said, her hand brushing his arm. My chest tightened. Damien noticed. "Who's that?" he asked, and when I didn't answer right away, he snorted. "Ex?" I nodded. "He looks happy," he added, like twisting the knife was funny. Ethan saw me too. For a split second, our eyes locked. He didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just nothing. Like I was a stranger. And for the first time since I'd left him, I felt it, the full weight of what I'd thrown away. I wanted to run to him. To say I'd made a mistake. But I was standing next to Damien, the guy I'd chosen. And I knew Ethan would never believe me now. Worse, I didn't believe myself. Because I hadn't just broken his heart, I'd rewritten our story like it meant nothing. And now? I wasn't even sure who I was without him. Damien's apartment was starting to feel like a prison. At first, I thought the dim lights and heavy curtains were sexy, mysterious. But after 2 weeks, they felt suffocating. Everything about him was curated, the way he spoke, the way he moved, even the way he touched me. It was all performance. But not for me. For himself. Like I was just the latest accessory to his ego. He never asked about my day, never remembered my birthday, never made me feel seen. And yet, I kept playing along. Why? Because admitting I'd made a mistake felt more humiliating than enduring the consequences. The first time he raised his voice at me, I'd forgotten to charge his portable speaker. That's it. He was pacing around, shirtless, irritated because his vibe was ruined. "Jesus, are you even good for anything?" he muttered, not even looking at me. My mouth went dry. I laughed it off. I always laughed things off. That night, I told myself he was just stressed. That maybe I was overreacting. But the truth gnawed at me. Ethan never once made me feel small, not even during our worst fights. I started checking Ethan's Instagram again. Pathetic, I know. I created a burner account so he wouldn't see me creeping. His page was still clean, still him, earthy colors, little notes in the captions, books he was reading, places he was hiking. But what crushed me was how he looked. He was glowing. Healthier. Happier. That girl from the grocery store was in a few pictures too, nothing romantic, but it didn't matter. She was there. And I wasn't. It hurt in places I didn't know could bleed. One night, Damien had a party. His friends were wild, coke in the bathroom, broken furniture, people hooking up in every room. I felt out of place. A stranger in heels that hurt, holding a drink I didn't want, smiling at jokes that weren't funny. Damien introduced me to one of his old flings, a girl named Cassie. She looked me up and down and said, "Oh, you're this week's favorite." My stomach turned. I laughed again, too loud, too fake. Later, in the kitchen, I found Damien flirting with her. Not just casual, full eye contact, hands grazing her waist, like I didn't exist. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. Just raised an eyebrow and said, "Relax. It's not that deep." "You jealous?" I froze. The old me would have yelled, cried, demanded answers. But this version? I was numb. "No," I lied. "Just asking." He smirked, handed me another drink, and walked away. That was Damien. Always in control. Always untouchable. And me? I'd become this watered-down, quieter version of myself. I missed being loved. I missed being known. Later that night, I sat alone on his balcony and finally texted Ethan. Just one line, *I miss you. *I stared at it for 10 minutes before deleting it. What would I even say if he replied? "Sorry, I threw us away for a dopamine hit"? He deserved peace. Not me dragging him back into my mess. But God, I missed him. Missed how he used to kiss my forehead when I was overthinking. Missed how he remembered I hated orange-flavored candy. Missed how he let me cry without asking why. The next morning, Damien was hungover and mean. He barked at me to make coffee, then snapped when I made it too sweet. "Do you even know how I like things?" he scoffed. That was it. Something cracked inside me. "Do you know how I like things?" I asked. He blinked, surprised I'd spoken up. I stared back, holding his gaze. "What's my favorite movie, Damien? My favorite flower? The name of my mom?" He didn't answer. Just grunted and walked away. That silence was louder than any scream. That afternoon, I packed a bag. Not all my stuff, just enough to leave. He didn't stop me. Didn't even ask where I was going. I told myself I was just taking a break. That I'd get clarity. But really? I was running. Not to Ethan, I didn't have that right anymore. I checked into a motel across town, where the sheets smelled like bleach and the TV barely worked. but it was quiet. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I cried. Not quiet, cinematic tears, the ugly, gut-wrenching kind. I cried for Ethan. For what I'd done. For the girl I used to be. A few days later, I saw Ethan again. Pure accident. I was leaving a bookstore when he walked in, holding a cup of chai. We both froze. My heart nearly stopped. He looked surprised. But not angry. Just tired. "Hey," I said, barely above a whisper. He nodded. "Hey." We stood there for a second too long, like time was daring us to speak. Finally, I asked, "How've you been?" He gave a small smile. "Getting there." I wanted to fall to my knees and beg for a do-over. But I didn't. Because the girl who left him wasn't the one he needed anymore. And I wasn't sure I could ever be her again. I replayed our bookstore encounter in my head every night like a sick lullaby. The way Ethan said getting there haunted me more than if he'd screamed. Because it meant he was healing, without me. And for some twisted reason, that hurt more than anything Damien ever did. I started walking past his building again, like some ghost hoping to be seen. Once, I saw that same girl, the brunette from before, coming out with his hoodie draped over her shoulders. She was smiling at something on her phone. And I knew. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew. Ethan had let her in the places he once kept sacred for me. I told myself it was my fault. Because it was. I was the villain in this story. No excuses, no redemption arc. Just a girl who broke something beautiful because she thought there was something shinier around the corner. But deep down, I still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't completely lost him. That some part of him still missed me too. So I did something I swore I wouldn't. I called him. It rang 4 times before he answered. "Hello?" His voice still made my chest tighten. "Hey, it's me," I said, as if he wouldn't recognize the girl who shattered his heart. Silence. "Then, why are you calling?" His tone wasn't angry. Just guarded. I hesitated. "I don't know. I guess. I miss talking to you." Another pause. Then he sighed. "You don't get to miss me now. You made your choice." And before I could respond, he hung up. I stared at my phone like it had slapped me. He was right. I didn't get to miss him. Not after the way I left. But the pain of hearing that truth hit harder than I expected. Because now, it was real. Final. No lingering maybes. No what-ifs. I tried distracting myself. Met friends. Deleted Damien's number. Joined a yoga class. But nothing stuck. I was floating through days like a shell, performing wellness while dying inside. Everyone around me thought I was fine, better even. But no one knew what it felt like to lose someone who loved you fully. Deeply. Quietly. I started writing unsent letters to Ethan in my journal. Things I wished I'd said when we were still us. Like, asterisk, I never felt safer than in your arms. Asterisk or asterisk, you were never boring, I was just too blind to see how rare you were. Asterisk. One night, I saw a post on Ethan's story, a picture of him and that girl, side by side, covered in paint, smiling like idiots at some art class. He captioned it, "trying new things with someone who feels like home." I stared at that line for so long my eyes burned. Someone who feels like home. That used to be me. I threw my phone across the room and screamed into my pillow until my throat hurt. Not because he was happy, but because he deserved to be. And I no longer deserve to be part of that joy. The worst part? I couldn't even blame anyone. Not Damien. Not the girl. Just me. My choices. My restlessness. My stupid need for thrill over truth. I started seeing a therapist, quietly, secretly. Told her everything. About how I traded love for lust. Peace for chaos. A future for a fantasy. She asked me, "Do you want Ethan back? Or do you want the version of yourself you had when you were with him?" That question broke me. Because I realized, I didn't just lose Ethan. I lost me. Still, I couldn't let go. I decided to write him one last message. Not to win him back. Not to manipulate. Just to say what needed to be said. It took me 2 hours to write and 1 second to send. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what I did. You were the best part of my life, and I hope she gives you everything I was too foolish to. He never replied. And he didn't have to. That silence was the answer. But it didn't sting the way I thought it would. It was peaceful. Like the final page of a book I'd kept rereading in denial. I cried that night, but it felt different. Not from longing, from acceptance. I'd hurt someone I loved, and sometimes, there's no coming back from that. Ethan wasn't mine anymore. Maybe he never really was. Maybe we just borrowed each other for a season, and I ended ours early. But one thing was clear, I wouldn't make the same mistake again. I might never love like that again. But if I did, I'd know what not to do. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of quiet, overcast day where the world feels soft around the edges. I was sitting at the same park bench Ethan and I used to claim as ours, sipping lukewarm coffee, wrapped in a scarf he once bought me on a whim. I hadn't planned to come here. My feet just led me. Like muscle memory. I hadn't seen him in weeks. No texts. No sightings. Just digital echoes of his new life with her, the one I watched from a distance like a sad spectator to my own mistakes. But that day, something shifted. Maybe it was the stillness. Maybe it was the way the wind carried no judgment. Or maybe I was just tired. Tired of punishing myself for a choice I couldn't undo. I pulled out my journal, the one filled with unsent letters, regrets, half-healed wounds, and read through pages of desperation that now felt like echoes from another girl. And as I flipped to the last page, I wrote 3 words that changed everything, I forgive myself. My hand trembled as I wrote them. Not because they felt untrue, but because they finally felt earned. I wasn't that reckless, thoughtless girl anymore. I had paid in sleepless nights, in silent grief, in watching the man I loved find joy without me. And in that forgiveness, something cracked open, not with a bang, but with a sigh. I looked up, and across the park, I saw them. Ethan and her. Laughing, walking hand in hand, her head resting on his shoulder like it belonged there. They didn't see me. I was just another stranger on a bench. And for once, I didn't flinch. Didn't cry. I watched them for a moment, then stood up and walked the other way. Not because it hurt less, but because I was done reopening the wound just to prove it still bled. Later that evening, I went home and cleared my phone. Deleted the photos, the unsent drafts, the bookmarked posts. Not to forget, but to make space. I lit a candle, played one of the playlists Ethan used to make me, and let the music fill the space like a farewell hug. This wasn't about moving on to someone else. It was about moving back into myself. Rebuilding the version of me that didn't need validation from lust or attention or temporary highs. The me who loved deeply and had the capacity to do it again, just more wisely this time. Weeks turned into months. Seasons changed. I started painting again, something I'd stopped when I was too busy pretending to be the cool girl Damien wanted. I made new friends, the kind who didn't ask me to shrink. I laughed more. Ate dessert without guilt. Slept peacefully. And when love eventually knocked again, I answered the door differently. Not with desperation. Not with fear. But with open eyes and a grounded heart. I won't lie, a part of me will always ache when I think of Ethan. Not because I want him back, but because he was the mirror that showed me who I really was before I cracked it. He loved me when I didn't know how to love myself. And I will always be grateful for that. Some people enter our lives as blessings. Others as lessons. Ethan? He was both. So if you're watching this because you're in the middle of ruining something good, or you already have, this is me telling you, don't run further. Don't wait until you're too far gone to turn back. Sit with the pain. Own your mess. And when the time comes, let go. Not for them. For you. Because healing isn't about rewriting the past. It's about writing something better next time. And I promise, there will be a next time.